An awakening, very simply, man, it's a shift in consciousness and it's a realization. Yeah, so when you have an awakening, your state shifts, you get something. Yeah, that's like the simplest way to put it. Let's talk about meditation awakenings a little bit. So this is the most kind of like natural way to have an awakening. It's probably the most standard way that you'd have an awakening. A number of years ago, man, I didn't know I didn't know you could actually do it. You can have what I call like dry awakenings, which is like just a sober awakening. It's you sitting, meditating, and just you get it. It's possible. So in simple terms, man, you can have enlightenment experiences or awakening experiences just by sitting and meditating. Now, I'll be completely real with you, man. It's not easy. Meditation awakenings, again, for a long time, I just didn't think they were possible because I would sit and I would just be trying to calm my mind and, center myself or even just slightly raise my state or raise my awareness. But enlightenment, awakening, I didn't think this was possible, But that's the thing. So honestly, man, this is so important for you to hear. Like 90% of people, 95% of people, hell, 99% of people, man, will fall into this trap of like, doing meditation, but going very shallow, doing it very lightly, never really like seeing what's possible with it. And so they have this idea, oh yeah, meditation, oh, I do that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, man. But like, what do you want? What do you want? If you're like me, you won't settle for this. This will piss you off. It'll be like, yeah, man, like, I know, I've been there, I've done that fucking shallow meditation. I want awakening. I want enlightenment. I want to go deeper. Yeah? And what happens is you do go deeper. If you stick with it and you learn how to meditate properly, and you build it into your life and you're doing it, a minimum of 30 minutes. And, if you can aim for an hour, that's awesome. And then at some point you won't even need to like formally sit as much. Like these days, man, I don't sit as much as I used to because it sounds a bit like interesting. I just caught myself there judging myself for how this might sound like spiritually egotistical, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I live more these days in a meditative way than, oh shit, let me get my 20 minutes of meditation in. Oh shit, let me get my round 2 20 minutes meditation in. You can do that and there's nothing wrong with that. And I still do that to an extent. But at some point, you become more connected to this work, to the point that life becomes way more meditative. Yeah, so your normal experience becomes more spiritual. Your baseline of consciousness has increased. And this is where it gets like good. And we'll talk about this because like this is an effect of having all of these different types of awakenings like together. When you have had multiple awakenings, that will be reflected in your daily experience of life. That will be reflected in your baseline. Before we go on to the next type of awakening, I want to show this. I notice myself, even with this description, only going very, very shallow. So I want to let you know that like this work that we're speaking about here, it goes deep. I'm only able to cover what I'm able to cover right now in this time slot, but still listen to everything and listen to it here it is. Listen to it with the knowing and the intuition that it goes a lot deeper than what I'm describing here. If you're wise and you know, if you know what I mean, if you get it, you will know. You will hear what's not said. You will hear the implicit things. You will be able to feel into the gaps that I'm not sharing, the stuff that I haven't mentioned. Okay? Use that intuition, because really that's your intelligence. Okay. The next type of awakening is what I would call a contemplation awakening. So we've had meditation awakening. The second is contemplation awakening. What is a contemplation awakening? A contemplation awakening, for me, is similar to a meditation awakening, but it's slightly different. Contemplation, most people don't know what this is. Contemplation is a type of inquiry. It's a type of questioning. It's a type of deep thinking. It's basically sitting with a question and sitting with it until you break into the truth of the thing. So you can contemplate on anything. And you'll notice contemplation is not the same as thinking. Most people get these mixed up. Most people don't know how to do true contemplation because they get it mixed up and conflated with just thinking. What I would say about this, man, is like contemplation is more subtle. Contemplation is a little bit like thinking, but it's not quite the same thing. Thinking is very rational. Thinking is very linear and logical. But contemplation, you're not really using your mind as much. Contemplation, honestly, it's as if you're thinking, not with your mind, but with your spirit and your intelligence. So you kind of know this, like when you deeply think about something, what do we mean? Why is it deeper? It's because you're using a deeper, more conscious sort of faculty, which is, you could say, your consciousness. So you're still thinking, but you're sourcing the answers from your being. You know how it feels to think and use your mind in a kind of rational, logical way? That's not contemplation. Contemplation is more of a laid-back, subtle activity. It's more of a subtle experience of pondering, holding space for, wondering, existentially inquiring, meditating on. This is contemplation. And what might happen is you're doing this. I love to do it, like all the time. I've even got a note at the top of my today page on my notes that just says, like, always be contemplating, you know? And if you do it a lot, what can happen is you start to get answers. So I realized, like, I would listen to a lot of, videos online, a lot of spiritual teachers. I would listen to them. I would just, take in hours and hours and hours of content. But I wouldn't just passively absorb it. I would contemplate it, which is to say, I'd think about it really deeply, man. And actually, you could say it's this. It's like, it's almost checking, verifying. Is this the truth? Let me put this to the test by putting it through the filter, not of my mind or my rational thinking, but my being. Let me contemplate it. Let me think about it with depth. Let me think about it with space. And let me try and get to the truth. Because, if you don't understand what contemplation is, and you're just not really familiar with it, this really simple way of just understanding it is you're trying to get to the truth of something. If you really think about it, man, yes, you can be contemplating all things. You can be contemplating life and all the little things in life. But what we mean in the context of awakening, what you're going to be contemplating are these following things: self, life, death, God, ego, truth, consciousness, what the fuck you are, love, the universe. And I don't mean like the objective, observable universe. I mean universe with a capital U, meaning absolute universe. So basically meaning reality. So you want to contemplate the crap out of reality. And if you don't know where to begin with that, that's okay. If you continue to watch this channel, you will get the right things. You'll hear little things and you will contemplate them. And that will be what you use to start contemplating reality. Because to begin with, you might not care. But as you do this and you really do it, you will see, oh, I do care. I do want to know. I do want to discover what is true. I care about truth. That's what you'll say. The next type of awakening is a very, very powerful, potent type of awakening. I would say that it's the most powerful and profound type of awakening that you can have. Okay? There's a reason I don't speak about this too much, and that's because it's incredibly sacred, and I'm still learning what relationship I have with it in terms of how much I share. This type of awakening is psychedelic awakening. So it's the deliberate use of plant medicines and psychedelics to raise consciousness and realize God. So man, here's what I would say is the thing to know about this, okay? So if you use one of these tools, what they do for you is two things. Number one, they open the door. Most of your life, spirituality has been conceptual. You've listened to non-duality videos. You've meditated, but it hasn't, you haven't really broken through. With a plant medicine or psychedelic, the doors open. The doors of perception are cleansed. You see it. Holy fuck. Oh my God. You see it. You experience truth. You experience non-duality. You experience consciousness. It's weird, man, but like even as I speak about it now, I can kind of like feel the vibrations of it. The more open your mind is, the more intuitive you become, and the more you can even see, like even just by speaking about it now, man, I can feel it in my being. I can feel it in my body. It's like it's strange, man, but it's sacred. And I know, my being knows, just even speaking of it is significant. Now, the second thing that they can give you, which is basically the same thing as the first one, is a direct mystical experience. So basically what you need to have an awakening, you could say, is a mystical experience. So again, like in our culture, when you've been growing up, you don't know what this is. This isn't part of our culture. No one knows what this is, what it means, and they certainly haven't experienced it. But this changes. Because if you choose to use one of these tools deliberately and consciously, what happens, man, is you experience it. You have a mystical experience. You finally have a metaphysical experience. You finally feel reality with a capital R. You finally feel spirit with a capital S. You finally feel the universe. You finally get this stuff. And when you're in this state and when you're having, this metaphysical experience, you may then, within that space, have realizations. Yeah, or, as we would say, have awakenings. So again, an awakening, again, think about it. Like, what does it really mean? You're waking up. So you are like very aware and you are very intelligent. Really, you're experiencing intelligence with a capital I. So you're hyper intelligent, hyper intuitive, which we'll come on to in a second, by the way. And you finally awaken to truth. And honestly, if you have an experience like this, you will remember it, and it will be in your like top 5, top 10 experiences, the best ones of your entire life. And like, if you really, felt this, and I know some of you have, oh my God. Like you really get it. And your entire life is changed. And I don't mean that lightly. Like things are, like, this opens everything up, man. It's what opens the door. And it shows you what's possible with this work. And you have a true awakening. Now, I know some people, man, will say things like, but if you're in an altered state by this, by this substance, is that a real awakening? So listen, man, I'm not here to convince you of anything, okay? I'm not going to be convincing you of anything ever. I'm just going to be showing what's true and point you in the right directions. But if you're falling into that groupthink and that scientific approach and that rational, logical, like reductionistic thinking, this is not the place for you. And I don't have anything to convince you of. So if that, maybe you have a part of you that's like that, I think we all do. We all have an inner skeptic. We've all been conditioned with materialism. We've all been programmed with this scientific, rational approach. Basically, man, if you want to do this work, what you have to do is you have to listen to your intuition, and you actually have to put down your rational mind for a bit. You can apply skepticism, and I recommend you do. Because if you didn't, like, that would be really, really unwise. Imagine if this was the complete wrong path. You want to have good judgment and wisdom. So use your discernment. So if you want to, man, you can be skeptical. Just make sure you're doing it authentically. Yeah, because very ignorant people, they inauthentically are skeptical. They don't really believe in their skepticism. They're just lazy. They're just using that because that's what they've heard. And they can't be asked to actually do the inquiry and do the work and do the investigation and see what the truth is. If they really cared, they would be open-minded. They would be willing to put aside their skepticism, or even like be skeptical about the fact that they're being so fucking skeptical. Yeah? So basically, man, like, be wise. Use wisdom with all of this, and be willing to drop a lot of your conditioning, which is very materialistic and very rational and skeptical. And, because if you don't, man, you won't make it far. You really won't. So if you care, drop that, move on, pursue truth. So the final one, the last type of awakening I want to share with you today is what I would call an intuitive awakening. So this, at least in my experience, man, it comes later down the line. What happens when you have psychedelic experiences and you meditate lots is you get in touch with and develop intuition. So basically, intuition comes online and it's true for you. And you start to develop this very powerful connection to reality through your intuition. And what you can do with this is actually kind of crazy. So you can start to sense the truth about something. You can start to make numerous leaps in logic without any rational explanation. In other words, man, you just get it. You just know. So for me, man, like, as I've done a lot of this work and I've really pursued it really seriously, I didn't expect this to happen, but intuition and intuitive awakenings happened for me probably the most. So now I'm at the point where, like, if someone shares an awakening they've had, I can just feel it. I can just feel the truth of it. Or maybe it's a shallow awakening. I will then know in my own experience, like, okay, I can feel the depth or shallowness of your awakening. Now, obviously, man, you don't know, because, like, notice this, ready? If someone has actually had, like, a lot of awakenings, maybe they're very intuitive, maybe they've had tons of intuitive awakenings, and they've barely even meditated their entire lives. But imagine that they suck at communicating. They suck at using language. They're not very good at conveying what they've experienced. They can't get across their awakenings. So notice, you never really know. But again, your intuition will help you, because even if the person, and I have this all the time, the person isn't maybe good at, like, explaining what they have experienced, but, like, your intuition, it will be able to almost go into them and feel around and, like, get it all. And you'll get it. And that's largely because you've got it yourself. In fact, that's actually probably the only reason, is because you've unlocked and accessed deep truth within yourself. And now you can feel it from others. But really, it's not about others. If you have an intuitive awakening, you're going to be turned inward, and you're going to be knowing something about truth, about consciousness, about yourself. You're going to know something about reality. It's a knowing. You could even say it's a remembering. Because when you start to have lots of awakenings, you realize, like, this truth has always been the case. There's only ever been this truth. And what it feels like is, it feels like you're remembering it. Because that's actually kind of what's happening. Remembrance. If you do the work to unlock your intuition and you start to have these intuitive awakenings, honestly, this is what will take your awakenings from maybe having, say, 10, 20, 50, 100 to thousands. Because you start to have them, like, every single day. Because what happens when you're a very, very intuitive person is you just stop counting. You just stop thinking. I used to journal all my insights, and then there was one night, man, where, like, I was just contemplating, and I was like, holy shit, man, I've got it again. It was a mixture, really, of meditation, contemplation, and just the intuitive awakening. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, okay, I remember. And I was like, I can journal this, but I don't have the words for it. And I can't be asked to put it down on my notes. And what does it mean if it's on my notes? Like, I've got it right fucking here. So, again, as we said earlier, you will have thousands of awakenings. But remember, there'll be various depths. Because notice that you can have an awakening where you have a really, profound realization, or you can have an insight. So I've talked about having, thousands of awakenings. That's true that you can have that. But don't confuse that with having thousands of insights. Because you will. Insights, you could say, man, they're like smaller awakenings. They're like teeny tiny openings. They're small realizations. They're insights. You have like a mini realization, a mini discovery, right, okay. One of those, it's almost like a conscious thought or a conscious realization. But it's like a small packaged one. Yeah, that's an insight. Oh, I've had an insight about how my diet sucks when I do this. Or, oh man, I've had an insight into how I've seemed to have the same girlfriend 5 times in a row. I'm attracting the same type of person. That's an insight. These insights, they're the kind of things that, like, if you live with someone and you're able to talk with them and you have, good conversations, it's like the deep thoughts that you bring to them, they'll be your insights. Or, for example, if I'm working with one of you guys in a coaching session, we would be having in that session insights together. Yeah, so it's small moments. It's almost like when your mind lights up for a second and you just realize something, but it's small. It's not an awakening, holy fuck. It's just like, oh, yeah, I've got a bit more, I've got closer to that. Yeah, the distance breaks down. Things fall away. It's clearer. You have insight. Insight is better understanding. It's a moment of better understanding. You grasp something. That's what insight is. And dude, you will have hundreds of thousands of insights. And this is what will make you, honestly, a really special person, a really rare person. Because a lot of people, if you observe, will be so caught up in the kind of mundane, low consciousness way of living that they won't have the time to sit, reflect, and meditate, to have, insights, to contemplate and then generate insights. So you'll be rare because you have all these insights because you spent so much time on your own thinking, contemplating. Well, again, it would be more contemplating than thinking, but spending time with your being and then generating insight. Remember this video because you will start to get curious about awakening. If you're not deeply into the spiritual work, which I would be surprised by now if you're watching to this point of the video, but you're curious, you're like, dude, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying is possible. I could do that, and I can do that, and hell, I will do that. But, if you're not sure, stick around. Keep listening. Your intuition connecting with this message, man, it's more important than you realize. You hearing this will go a long way. If you go on to have awakenings in your life, any number of awakenings, my God, you will be so fucking grateful. And you will be just blown away by how you came across this stuff called spirituality, this thing called spirituality, and you ended up realizing the truth. You ended up finding yourself. When you do that, you will realize that this work is where it's at. Okay, man. Final thing from me is if you want any help or support from me personally, I do offer one-to-one coaching and mentoring. If you're interested, you can see the link in the description. Otherwise, man, we'll call things there. Dude, good luck. Lots of love. Take care, man. And as always, peace.